And we are back with the chosen journey with Steve Carsey. Steve, how's your week going, buddy?
Everything's been going great. It's always good to be back with you and talking some baseball.
Well, last couple of weeks we've been talking about present day baseball and talking about the Yanks and talking about Bryce Harper and the Phillies and seeing what things are going right, going wrong. Today, it's funny when I prepared this agenda, I actually was researching right before I went to bed, and I actually saw the whole discussion in my dream. So much so when I woke up, I thought we'd already pre-taped it, but we hadn't. This is how much passion I had for this player. Unfortunately, we just lost one of our greats, Mr. Vida Blue. 73, past 73 years old, 73 years young, 17-year career. Did you ever have a chance to see him live? What is your relationship with Vida Blue?
Never got to see him live. I have met him when I was in Oakland a time or two, and when he's around the ballpark. But what a great player, great man in the era that he played in. Put up some really good numbers, and just a guy that you can count on every fifth day to go out there, take the ball, and compete his tail off.
So I got to ask you, having met him, any stories particularly stick in mind or anything he would have said to you? Any memorable quotes?
No, it wasn't long conversations. It's, when, you know, um, older players come into the clubhouse when you're young, you just give them the respect and you say hi, you know who they are, you know their history. And then, obviously they're there, wanting to talk to other people and stuff, but it's just more of a hello in passing and not having a full conversation.
How did he come across? Was he more of a soft-spoken man? Was he the type, "Hey, Cars, let me tell you something"? Like, what was his personality like at that point?
No, it's a more of a soft-spoken, gentleman who is, just real reserved, and at least the guy that I had met, and uh, you know, was one that you can see that competition fuels him.
One of the questions I had for you off air was one of my always intriguing questions. If this man gets drafted today and puts up these numbers theoretically, is this a Hall of Famer? Because I always thought that he had a little bit of personal issues, which back then one little item can really block your way. Dave Parker being an example. This was a surefire Hall of Famer, and one incident, and that's it. And I don't know if that was the case for Cobra. I don't know if the case was for Vida Blue, but it used to be way more difficult to get into the Hall of Fame. And considering his numbers, he didn't even get a sniff. I was shocked. So let me throw this by you here. So we got three straight World Series, first of all, which, very unheard of in this day and age. It's very hard to do. He was very vital to that cog. 1971, right? MVP and Cy Young Award winner. Why? Only 312 innings, 1.82 ERA, 301 strikeouts. Pretty freaking good. Six-time All-Star. He was drafted in 67 by the KC A's. So once upon a time, Kansas City had the A's. Maybe they'll move back there and they'll have two teams. Not. But once upon a time, they were the KC A's. Debuted at 19 years old in 1969, threw his first no hitter at 21 years old. Wow. Like, this is like Doc Gooden all over again. But these numbers, Steve, I put a whole bunch together here. Let me throw it at you. 209 to 161 record, lifetime 3.27 ERA, lifetime 1.233 whip, 2175 strikeouts, 143 complete games, 37 shutouts over 3343 innings, 3,343 innings. Astro, just even fathom that 143 complete games. Steve, are we ever going to see this again?
You're not going to see the number of complete games by starting pitchers, that's for sure. Not the way the game is in today's analytics. You get 100 pitches, 105 pitches out of a starter, and if that gets you through five or six, then you move on to your bullpen, and that's what you're paying those guys for. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know, what's the highest number of complete games that he had in a season, but I would venture, if you took, a guy in from that era, whoever it is, Nolan Ryan, Vida Blue, Catfish Hunter, a whole bunch of guys, and you looked at how many complete games, you might not see that number in 2023 for the whole league of starting pitchers. If there was a guy who had 30 complete games in 1 year, you might not see that this year. It's crazy. It's to know that the it's becoming a dinosaur. That a complete game, not even a complete game shutout, just a complete game in general of 9 innings is kind of going by the wayside.
And I gotta ask you, like, I don't know if I'm living in the clouds or what be it, but I take a look at the Nolan Ryans of this world, Tom Seaver, and go watch their old games. These are guys that did not go to performance centers in the off season. They took their off seasons off. Whether they go work on the farm or did whatever they did. The Rick Rushells of this world. Remember, like, and yet all they did, they had these rubber arms and they were pitching, pitching, pitching. And I still, one of our first discussions early on in the chosen journey, I said was, are these pitchers overworking? Are they too muscular? Are they working too much in the gym? Are they breaking down so easily because they're overworking? Perhaps are they better off having that time off? There was thoughts of the football at the time. Throwing the football is going to do it for them. There's all these theories. You having coached, what is the difference in the build of people from the Vida Blue era versus today's era in your mind?
I mean, there's many reasons why. I just think that as you adapt to the game and the game grows, guys are just bigger and stronger. They're more specialized in what they're doing from a young age. They're being taught velocity. They're being taught, you know, this is how many pitches you need to throw, and everything is so monitored. Where I think, 40, 50 years ago, and even before that, nothing was really monitored. They didn't have stats. They didn't have analytics to tell you what a guy's spin rate was. They didn't tell you how much horizontal break his curveball had. You know who told you that? The hitter. The hitter told you how good a guy's fastball was because he couldn't hit it, or how good a curveball was because he couldn't hit it. And today everything is so measured that you can kind of just, pick and choose what you want to do. But as far as injuries go, baseball's an unnatural thing for players to do. To throw a baseball is a really unnatural thing, especially to pitch. And when you have these more high velocity guys and more stress put on the arm, then I just think you have more injuries.
And there's something else I just thought of. And again, this is my head up in the clouds and just kind of thinking things through. But for some reason in my mind, I tend to see that a lefty that throws hard with control is to me more of a rarity. Those lefties that throw hard, it feels like we don't know where the pitch is going. Vida Blue, came in pretty quick because they wanted to, maximize his arm at the time. The owner of the A's said, hey, this guy's throwing heat, get him up here. I don't care if he knows how to pitch or not. He throws hard. And as a lefty, he had quite great control from a very young age. Having coach pitchers, do you find that righty lefty thing there's an issue as far as control with lefties more than righties?
No, I've never really looked into that. I just think it's comes down to delivery, comes down to release point, comes down to be able to repeat your delivery on a consistent basis to be able to locate it. It's a God-given talent. It's a natural talent to be able to throw the ball where you want, especially at that speed and at that distance. When your body starts to get tired, and being able to repeat that and do it over and over again, it just doesn't happen. You have that skill as a young boy or a young kid, and then you got to learn how to hone that skill to a bigger and higher level as you get older. But if you have um, you know the skill to command a baseball and throw it where you want, you're already ahead of the game. Now, velocity is a different story. Secondary pitches are a different story, but command, that's the number one thing that we talk about is being able to command your fastball. Can we throw your fastball in? Can you throw your fastball out? Can you throw your fastball up? Can you throw your fastball down? And if you can do that, it's just one of those things where, you're getting in the right positions with your body to allow your hand and arm to do that.
Now, Vida Blue wasn't even supposed to be a pitcher. He decided very late that he was going to go ahead and pursue a career in baseball because he was a two sport player. And out of all sports, of course, it has to be football. And he thought that he was going to be a football player, but decided that baseball was a quicker track to him to get to the show and support his family. He had multiple siblings, but you know, back then you were going to see a two sport player, and we've talked before about these two sport players, and Tawny being the aberration as far as on both sides of the diamond. Steve, are we in this day and age? Kyler Murray had to make his decision very early on. Don't know if he made the right decision from a natural standpoint. He did, but as far as from longevity goes, I've always said, you give me football or give me baseball. Give me baseball any day of the week. Are we ever going to see, you think, a true two sport player again in our sport here?
I hate to say never because, would you ever say never to what Shohei Ohtani is doing, being on the mound and being a hitter in the highest level of competition available in baseball? Probably not, but there is one. I don't know. I think it's just really tough physically on a person or a player to play football and how physical that is, and then come and play baseball for 162 games and what kind of a grind that is. I mean, again, I don't want to say never, but I think it's going to be highly unlikely that there's going to be, a player to be able to do that physically. And then on the other hand, these guys are getting paid so much money. I just don't think that if you're a football player, they're going to go allow you to play baseball so you get hurt, and vice versa. If you're a baseball player, I don't think they're going to let you go play football if they're paying you some type of money to do that. Uh, in short, it's going to be really hard.
We think of the Bo Jacksons of this world, Neon Dion Sanders, but it always tends to be falling around football and baseball. The one guy I could think of is Danny Ainge back in the day that ended up going to basketball. He was going to be a baseball player. We have John Elway as well. Again, we're talking about football and baseball. I've never really seen a hockey player in a multi-sport situation. And basketball being pretty rare, why don't we see an MLB player in the offseason go play basketball in the NBA or go shoot pucks or stop pucks in hockey? Those sports, as far as the being on the skates and running up and down the court, just too taxing, I would say, as far as doing that plus baseball, I'm going to guess.
Yeah, I mean, I can see basketball, but listen, being from Canada, you know better than anybody. Hockey's such a skill when you're on the ice, and to be able to skate, it's not that easy to pick up. And if you don't do it from a young age, it's just like hitting a baseball. If you don't do that from a young age, it's going to be really hard for you to do it when you get into high school and further beyond that. It just doesn't work out well for many players in that aspect. But you know, a skill learned at a very young age is where I think some of these guys have an advantage.
And to be able to learn the plays, be able to master both sports at the same time, very challenging. I think at the end of the day, where the money's going to be, and as far as injuries go, you pick the one and you just specialize in the one. And I think for longevity, that's the solution. I can foresee that somebody's going to come out one day and want to be a four sport player, and I'm going to play all four, but you never ever know. But doubt it, but you never know in this day and age. If Otani can do it, anything is possible. And Vida Blue made his decision, and I think he made a very correct decision at the end of the day. The thing that saddens me, Steve, is once a person passes and he can't be around anymore in the clubhouse and with the fans, without being in the Hall of Fame, is that people will forget from generation to generation. That's what saddens me the most. Whereas you walk into Cooperstown, you'll always have that plaque. And given his numbers and given what he contributed to the game, it's a shame that he never got to have that standing. I was actually shocked at his numbers from Cooperstown, and voting was a lot different back then than it is today. I mean, he lasted 3 years on the ballot. That's it. And his top vote getting was 8.7%. That's it. And how many guys, back when the ballot was 15 years, how many guys lasted on the ballot for the full 15 years, never made it, end up going to the Veterans Committee? It was a real challenge. And now, it seems with analytics and how we view stats, you and I have these debates all the time where we see a guy and we're saying, is he a Hall of Famer or not a Hall of Famer? And then you actually compare their stats to someone in the Hall of Fame. If you know how to look at it right, you're saying, wow, this person is actually a surefire Hall of Famer. And that's to me always the measuring stick. The one person I thought of with him, I thought for a second, maybe Bert Blyleven. Bert Blyleven, wasn't your traditional Hall of Famer per se, But when I compared their numbers, I would say as far as career numbers and as far as top seasons, Vida Blue obliterated Bly 11. Bly 11 had longevity, 25 years versus 17 years. It's amazing what 8 extra years playing can get you as far as stats wise.
Yeah, I mean, listen, isn't that what like Omar Vizquel is going through? They said he played for X amount of years longer than maybe he should have, but like you can't fault the guy for playing X amount of years because you're physically able to do it and you're skillful enough to still compete at that level and generate those numbers. So it's very tricky. I mean, I think the analytics now they get to break it down a little bit more and be specialized in it where back in the day they were just going off strictly numbers, right? It's how many wins did he have, how many losses did he have, and then you always had comparables, right? The comparable was to get in the Hall of Fame you need 300 wins, to get into the Hall of Fame you need at least 3,000 hits, right? um
500 home
so
runs. That
yeah,
was like
500 home runs. Those, Fred McGriff came up, but I mean, he's in now, but Fred McGriff came up 493, but didn't reach 500, so he can't, so he can't get in the Hall of Fame. So I think that's where it's changed. I think they can actually put, uh, you know, valuable numbers together with the analytics and see how valuable a player actually is, whether his numbers stand out above the rest or don't stand out as much as somebody else's does.
and we've talked about this ad nauseum, but it comes down to a lot of subjectivity at the end of the day, and who likes whom and who's popular with the fans and with the media, etc. Jack Morris being very growly around people when he was pitching, and all of a sudden became your best friend on the planet once he became a broadcaster. You never know. But to me, all that stuff should be irrelevant. It comes down to on the diamond, everything else. We brought up Kurt Schilling before. Take
Yep.
aside politics, take aside everything else. Was this guy a gamer? Did this guy produce? Is this a Hall of Famer or not? If you had to build your team around someone in this prime, would you want him on your team or not? And, back in the 80s, 90s, we were so lucky to have so many people of such strong caliber. It was almost embarrassment of riches. And then, you have the steroid era, everything else. All that stuff gets drowned out. And Vida Blue did not play in any of those eras. All the guy did was show up, pitch strong, and to me, if I'm gonna just do that measuring stick and look at the numbers, Steve, I like the fact that he was just very consistent. Almost
Yes.
every year he had an ERA under three, almost or around the three mark. His WHIP was always around 1.1, 1.2, just very consistent. For someone that had 5 amazing years and 10 not so good years, he was just pretty consistent. And when you can be that good for so long, I wish the voters could have given him another look. He is in the A's Hall of Fame at least. And I hope that when they do move to Vegas or wherever they're going, they can maintain that decorum as far as remembering their past. One of the things that a lot of people are raised with the A's, and I'm going to bring up Vida Blue as well, is you move to a new city. Do you lose that history? Do you wipe it out and start from fresh? I hope not. And I hope the lore of the franchise, I hope they can remember, all the greats that ever played for the A's, no matter what city they're in, because this is such a storied franchise, and Vida Blue is certainly one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% that he is one of the greats in A's franchise history. And, you know, I'll just say one of the other measuring sticks I think that they use for the Hall of Fame is, are you one of the top 10 best players in a decade? In an era of 10 years, are you consistently one of the best top 5 or 10 players in the league over a 10-year period? And if you're that type of player over a 10-year period, one, you're going to put up the numbers, two, you're going to be noticed, and three, is that a measuring stick for a Hall of Fame nod?
I can tell you someone that has no All-Star games under their belt, no awards whatsoever. It's tricky. It's tricky because if you're never among your peers in the top group, you're just very consistent, but there's always somebody better. Are you the Hall of Famer then? I don't know. But, also, let's be honest, like if you're a closer in the AL during Mario Rivera's years, you ain't winning crap. Rivera's taking it every year pretty much. And a lot of people fell under that, Garcia Pera, as far as having Jeter and other people as far as in his league. I can give them a little bit of a break that way. So I think you just have to look at a totality. I did like the fact that he won an MVP and a Cy Young, the fact that he got Cy Young voting before. if at least you're even showing up in the voting. Like there are people that literally do not show up in the top 5, top 10 voting in the awards every year. That does speak a little bit, but I don't get a Hall of Fame vote yet. So maybe in the future. But as of right now, I just always take a look and I think to myself, who's in the Hall of Fame right now? Who is most similar? And how does that work? And, I mentioned when Kirby Puckett came in, Ozzie Smith comes in. How do you have Ozzie Smith and you don't have Omar Vizquel? How do you have Puckett and you don't have Andrew Jones? These kind of things in nauseum. Tony Gwynn, we brought him up before, and one of the greatest hitters of his time. But the fact that you could get on base through a walk rather than a hit, does that make you any less valuable? In this day and age, no. They're just as
Right.
valuable. So it'll be interesting to see, I guess, bottom line is over the next decade or so, who's getting in. And it just seems like, especially the way the Veterans Committee adapted, and now uh, people that did not get in the Hall of Fame originally are now being relooked by the committee, like the Fred McGriffs of this world. We're going to see more people that are deserving and get a second chance. And overall, I would say that's a good thing. I would rather have more people in than have deserving people out if given the choice.
Yeah, absolutely. I think who deserves to go into the Hall of Fame should be in the Hall of Fame. Obviously, the criteria is going to matter.
And it's still the hardest Hall of Fame to get into, and that's not a bad thing. That gives it the allure. And for anybody that has not gone to Cooperstown, you're a baseball fan. If you're not a baseball fan, go check out Cooperstown. You'll fall in love with the game. And for Vida Blue and summing up today, if you've never seen the man pitch, the footage is out there. Go jump on YouTube. Go watch some of his old footage. You'll be blown away. Whatever team you're supporting, you wish you could slide a Vida Blue in his prime for your team right now. Trust me.
Yeah, 100%. What a great player, and it would be wise for people to just go check him out and see how he performed and what he did.
Another tribute to a person lost too soon from our baseball family, and wish the Vida Blue family all the best, and salute Vida Blue today for his accomplishments in Major League Baseball. Steve Carsey, my friend, thank you for sharing your insights. I didn't know that you had met Vida Blue, but of course you did, because baseball is a very small fraternity. I should have realized, being a A's Hall of Famer, that he would have found his way around the clubhouse. And I'm glad you were able to meet him. And whatever effect he had on your career, it's nice that you got to see him. And you know, that's where I hope for all the younger players out there in whatever respective teams, especially on spring training, when those Hall of Famers do show up, it's really nice to rub elbows and glean whatever we can from them.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been very lucky to meet a lot of people throughout my playing career, whether they're pitchers or position players. It's always nice to reminisce in what the generation prior to my generation has done and how they performed and what great players they are. It's just the history of baseball, and that's a part of the game that I love.
Amen. Amen. We'll see you back next week on the Chosen Journey. Thank you for your insights as always. And we'll see you all back very soon.
Great. Thanks, Jonathan. See you soon.